Welcome back everyone to some long overdue Yu-Gi-Oh content. There are some new games that have been holding me hostage and more bad news is on the horizon since Elden Ring Night Rain is out, but I'll try to get games in during my commute to work. Now while Argostars have not received the best reviews since their release, I for one was looking forward to trying them and I didn't regret it. Yes, it is a trap deck that gets absolutely destroyed by a lot of meta decks, but it should be obvious I enjoy a lot of these rogue decks that can sneak up on opponents. The deck doesn't have a lot of cards really, just 7 to be precise, with only 2 monsters and 3 trap cards that summon themselves as monsters with additional effects. The verdict I hear from a lot of players is that it is just a UR dust deck, but if you manage to get a lot of the cards while hunting Mermail support down, it might be worth a try if you're not constantly playing meta to master rank. Initially I took a pure approach with the deck as many might expect, but soon it became mandatory to run the Speedroid engine to get our starter card Audra out. One of the main goals and weaknesses of the deck is that everything revolves around our main monster for the most part. Audra can fish 2 of the traps out of the deck to put them face up on the field, enabling a lot of our plays while banishing herself to trigger some of their secondary effects. Ateo is the prime candidate for this as it can only bounce a monster to the hand if you have a banished Argostars monster. While having only one form of disruption is lackluster, the Argostars also have protection through their traps if they are in the spell or trap zone. Each of them has a different effect to prevent your warrior destruction by battle or effect, and they also have quick effects to summon them or place them back into the zone for some quick maneuvering. Still, that's not the greatest thing to rely on, so trap monster support like a Pop Fist and Anguish statue is actually mandatory I think in this deck. A Pop Fist can negate cards up to the number of trap monsters you have, and Anguish can pop cards for each trap you summon, which is a decent assistance to Ateo. To combat the meta, I think Nebro and Dimensional Fissure plus Shifter are mandatory, with no type of harm to us, so that works out nicely. If decks stop relying on the grave a lot or summoning a lot, these would be the cards to swap out. The next cards to swap out, since they are my personal preference, are That's 10 and You're Finished. I have seen these in some lists and I think they are too cool not to try out at least. That's 10 gets up to 10 counters for each effect activated to pull a trap monster from the deck that can be activated in the same turn. By card art and lore, this is purely intended for You're Finished, but it can work with any of our cards. You're Finished is absolutely nuts I think in the current state of Yu-Gi-Oh, as a lot of decks are easily activating enough effects to get their whole field white for almost free. The extra deck is pretty toolboxy as it is your personal preference, as long as you have some decent rank 4s and links for the most part. MX Saver Evoker is probably the only mandatory card next to Silhouette Rabbit. I did have Extravagance initially, but I realized I didn't want to make a second Invoker or a Rabbit, so I just cut it out. Anyway, I've spoken enough about the deck, so let's move on to the replays. Let me preface these replays by saying there are a lot of blue eyes around here, and with the ban list coming into effect now, I hope that ends soon. Despite that though, this deck has a surprisingly decent blue eyes matchup if you can set up going first. Nuking their field before they get negates or mounting some of their essential spells and traps is amazing, along with their normal summon. It's probably one of the decks I felt most comfortable against, although it's probably an auto loss if they go first and you don't have Nebro or Shifter. I've been thinking about doing decks in a 2-part video format, with one being like this, and another just having a bunch of replays without commentary, so let me know what you guys think about that. It's all to help manage more content out since I'm usually so busy with other stuff. As you saw, Max C did threaten us here, but thankfully this deck can ignore it if you have Audra. Sadly, we didn't have Audra, and I felt going into Invoker for her would have been too many draws, so I settled for the Rabbit, giving up 2 draws. While I didn't speak on our other Argostar monster, she is more of a beat stick at times, but in this scenario, it worked out since she still serves as a banished monster for Iteo's bounce effect. When attacking for lethal, Fierce Parf is good to consider, but I've noticed some lists avoid her entirely. I don't mind the 1 copy. Lightning Teodo is oddly enough our Searcher trap that requires a discard, but it doesn't require a condition like the other 2 to summon itself. While discarding to search seems mid as hell, the field spell can help get back any needed pieces, so that is something to consider when using its effect. Audra also has a hand effect to send the monster's attack to 0 on their turn, so I think that's a backup plan if you ever feel threatened. Since we open Your Finish against a deck guaranteed to trigger it, this is pretty much GG despite everything. I quickly shotgunned it there because you can only nuke the field in response to an effect activation, so them summoning a Blue Eyes Jet Dragon could have been concerning. Now normally I would sign off and let the replays play, but I have a quick one here to show a big weakness of the deck. I've probably only run into 2 mirror matches with this, so shout out to any Argostar enjoyers. One of the most common and clear weaknesses of the deck is getting Audra negated fully while it is on the field. It cannot be Ashe thankfully, but impermanence, effect veiler, and anything that negates it permanently is probably the worst scenario to be in. It's a common weakness a deck cannot afford nowadays, so be aware if you plan to try this. Here you can see a decent default setup, and while I didn't talk about the field spell, it is absolutely amazing for overall negation. The purge in my hand is funny since I am still getting used to the dominance cards, and sometimes I forget I have certain attributes negated. While none of the main deck monsters care about purge, I did lose some duels in forgetting Time Thief Redoer and Typhon were negated because of purge, so don't be like me. Anyway, as I said, we negate the Audra with a Pop Fist or the field spell before it can banish, and we are good to go for the most part. That'll be it for me. I hope I can bring some new videos soon, but until then try to catch some of my live streams on Twitch, and make sure to comment and subscribe.
Stand